Dahil sa mga hamon ng buhay ngayong pandemya, kailangan mag-tech ka muna. Oh, pero sandali. Teka muna, no? Kasi, alam mo, bago kayo mag-click, mag-like, o mag-share, dapat laging may extra care. Ako po si Mon Isberto, ang inyong tech lolo, at welcome po sa isa pang bagong episode ng Tech Ka Muna. Napapanood po tayo sa One Ph CignalTV Channel 1 at makikita rin po itong programa sa pamamagitan ng YouTube channel at ng Facebook page ng One Ph. Okay? At magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat at mayong gabi sa inyong tanan at thank you again for joining us this evening. Ngayong gabi, maganda yung tatalakayin natin kasi ito talaga napaka-relevant. Importante ito sa pang-araw-araw na buhay ng ating mga kapatid. Ang tanong po ay, paano ba tayo pwedeng magkonsulta sa mga doktor sa isang ligtas na paraan? Kaya naman nagiging tanong nito kasi alam mo, mula nung dumating si COVID, maraming mga tao medyo ayaw nang pumunta sa ospital. Sa takot na baka, sige, magpapagamot sila magkakasakit naman ng COVID. Yun ho, yung isa talagang nakakabagabag sa isip ng maraming tao. So ngayon, sinasabi naman ng mga hospital at maraming mga doktor na mayroon naman paraan pala na ligtas na makipagkonsulta sa mga doktor. At yan po yung sinasabi nila pamamagitan ng online o ng telehealth o teleconsulting. Ginagawa ito sa pamamagitan ng internet, yung iba naman ginagamit ay cellphone, no? So, paano ba ito? Ang tanong naman ng iba, o sige, pwede nga magkonsulta, pero epektibo ba ito? At kaakabay niyang tanong na yan, o sige, gusto ko magkonsulta online o sa pamamagitan ng telehealth or teleconsulting. Ano ba ang kailangan ko bilang pasyente? Anong kailangan kong gawin para maging mahusay yung consultation na yun? So yun po ang pag-uusapan natin ngayong gabi. At meron tayo tatlong experts. Ito yung mga taong gumagamit talaga ng ganitong teknolohiya para magsilbi sa publiko. At tuturuan tayo nila, isi-share nila yung experience nila kung paano gamitin ang telehealth, telemedicine, or online consultation para makatulong sa kanilang mga pasyente. Okay? Magsisimula tayo ngayon dito sa Metro Manila. Ang ating guest po ay si Dr. Jacqueline Melendres, isang medical specialist sa Rizal Medical Center. Ang Rizal Medical Center po ay isang DOH Retained Teaching and Training Hospital na mayroong 500 bed capacity at matagal na sila nagte-telemedicine. Good evening, Doctor. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. Good evening, Sir Mon. Thank you for having me.
Okay, no? And I understand you're a dermatologist, Doc?
Correct. I'm a dermatologist.
At matagal ka nang nagsisilbing sa Rizal Medical Center. Ang nga pala, kaklase mo rin ata yung ating isa pang guest, no?
So I've been with the Rizal Medical Center for almost 3 years na, sir.
Okay. Ang understanding ko, and correct me if I'm wrong, no, Doc, ay matagal nang gumagamit ng telemedicine or teleconsultation ang Rizal Medical Center. Can you give us a background? Gano'ng katagal na ito ginagawa nila?
So in our department, sa Department of Dermatology po, so it's when I joined 3 years ago, it was already starting. So nagsimula po kami, ang initial goal po talaga namin was to partner with geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas. So nakikipag-partner po kami with another healthcare institution. For example, nakikipag-partner po kami with Damian Reyes Hospital, which is in Marinduque. So they were our first partner. So it was a provider to provider relationship. So hindi po direkta sa patient. So they would have patients na meron pong titingin sa kanila na doctor or ibang healthcare provider tapos i-refer po nila sa amin. So this was done back then through email. So simpleng-simple lang po 'yon. Since dermatology is a very visual field, so we would require them just to send us patient photos, tapos yung history po ng pasyente, and then kung kinakailangan po, nakikipag-video conference din po kami sa pasyente. So, ganoon lang po kami nagsimula. So, until po nung nagsimula yung pandemic, which was this year, so we had to adapt to the changes that was brought about by the pandemic. So we had to change to direct to consumer, sir. So
yun
pasyente na agad.
Yun na yung tanong ko ngayon. Anong naging pagbabago? At saka mas dumami ba ngayon ang mga taong nagte-teleconsult?
Definitely, sir. Kasi dati po, so like I said, nire-refer lang nung doktor sa kabilang panig yung pasyente sa amin. Pero sa ngayon po, since nagsimula yung pandemic, we had to adapt. Diretso na po kami sa pasyente. So the patients are able to reach us directly through a cell phone number. So yan po yung nakikita natin on the screen now. So they contact us through that cell phone number. And then our resident physicians are the ones who get back to them through that cell phone number. We decided to use a cell phone number kasi we thought that this was more accessible to more patients, lalo na po sa mga pasyente na madalas na pinagsisilbihan po namin sa Rizal Medical. Kasi naisip namin na baka hindi po lahat sila may access to internet connection. So
sa karanasan ninyo, Doc, na-confirm ba? Tama ba yung assessment nyo na mas madaling mag-contact yung mga tao sa inyo sa pamamagitan ng cellphone?
Sa ngayon po, binibigyan kasi namin yung pasyente ng option. Kung gusto po nilang via phone call, meaning tatawagan po sila ng residente namin, or via video call. Karamihan po talaga, majority, let's say 98% of them choose the phone call. Kasi nga po, they would say na unstable po yung internet connection or wala po silang access to good internet connection. However, they are able to send us photos kasi nga po, kailangan namin nung patient, nung photos po nung problema sa balat ng pasyente through Facebook Messenger. Kasi the networks offer free Facebook Messenger kahit wala kang internet subscription. So that's how they send us the photos and then we call them para po yung actual consultation.
Okay. Sa field ng dermatology, no? Sa karanasan ninyo, Dr. Melendez, sapat na ba yung impormasyon na nakukuha nyo sa pamamagitan ng phone conversation o yung mga picture na ipinapadala sa inyo sa pamamagitan ng Facebook Messenger? Is that enough information for you to give para makapagbigay kayo ng mabuting payo o treatment sa mga pasyente nyo?
So in majority of cases, yes, actually, sir. So that's what's different about our field. Kasi nga po, like I said, we're very visual. So padalan kami ng picture, kadalasan masasabi na po namin talaga kung ano yung problema ng pasyente together with history. So ikukwento ng pasyente kung ano yung paano nagsimula, ano yung naging problema, and based on that, magagawa na po namin ng diagnosis at saka po mabigyan na namin ng treatment. So yun po yung kakaiba sa field namin sa dermatology. In other specialties po kasi they really have to see the patient in person to conduct a physical examination. Kasi hindi po enough yung mga litrato lamang para sa kanila.
Okay, pero halimbawa, let me pursue that question further, Doc. No? Kasi halimbawa ako ay sabihin natin may problema ako sa puso. No? Or sabihin natin ako ay nahihirapan na umuwi o ano. Is there anything that teleconsulting can do for me? Kasi, kumbaga, mas kailangan ng physical examination yan, hindi ba? Anong tulong kung meron man may bibigay yun?
Actually, with telemedicine, we are able to direct the patient, kung kunyari, for a medical consult, kung ubo or kaya nahirapang huminga, pag nag-consult sila through telemedicine, masasabi po kung kailangan na bang sa emergency room dalhin yung pasyente, or pwedeng via teleconsult lang, or kailangan sa outpatient clinic po, direkta makita. So with that aspect pa lang, kung ang patient po is hesitant to go to the hospital,
paano yun?
isang tawag, masasabihan na siya na, sige, pwede tayong mag-antay, pwede tayong mag-teleconsult lang. Or outpatient lang, mas safe doon, hindi mo kailangan pumunta sa emergency room. Or kung talagang kinakailangan, at least, hopefully, hindi po madedelay yung treatment, masasabihan siya na, kailangan mo na talagang pumunta sa emergency room. Kasi yun po yung nakikita naming problema in some cases, nadedelay po talaga yung treatment dahil sa takot nila. So, hopefully, through telemedicine with some advice from a physician, at least masasabihan sila kung ano yung kailangan talaga nilang gawin. Kung wala po kasi talaga, majority of Filipinos would just wait, titiisin nila. Kasi yun po talaga ang Pinoy, matiisin. So, at least with access to a physician, kahit through online or text message or phone call, at least meron pong alam nila kung ano yung dapat nilang gawin. And hopefully that will avoid delay in management or treatment. Kasi yun po talaga yung medyo nangyayari recently.
Doc, you raised, I think, an important point, no? Kasi maraming ang tao medyo parang, di ba, ilag, no? Parang ayaw nilang pumunta sa ospital dahil nga natatakot nga sila magpapagamot tapos magkakasakit lang sila. Pero I understand that a number of medical institutions, mga hospital, ginawa talaga nilang trust yung telehealth nila or yung telemedicine. Kasi napansin nga nila, hindi pumupunta yung mga pasyente nila ng ibang kondisyon. Halimbawa, I read na for the Northern Mindanao Medical Center sa Cagayan de Oro City, yun po ang trust ng program nila. Ano bang policy niyo sa Rizal Medical Center? Is it COVID cases or non-COVID cases na ginagawa niyo?
For telemedicine, actually, well, Rizal Medical Center is a COVID hospital, designated COVID hospital
yes.
also. So, pero, nung nagsimula po kasi yung pandemic, talagang nung start pa lang po nung dineclare po yung ECQ, first day, Rizal Medical Center has already put forward telemedicine services. So, lahat po ng department sa amin, lahat po ng specialties, meron pong hotline number na maaari pong tawagan ng pasyente. So, kasi we had to close down our OPD during the ECQ, so we wanted to give our patients access to our doctors kahit po sarado kami nung time na yon. And then, through telemedicine, we manage both mostly non-COVID cases. And then if meron pong suspect or mga probable, at least po nasasabihan po sila where they have to go to the emergency room kung kinakailangan.
Sige, pwede bang sabihin natin, paano nyo, curious ako, Doc halimbawa, telepono lang, cellphone conversation lang. Paano nyo hinihingi o nakukuha yung impormasyon na kailangan nyo sa pasyente? Ano yung mga tanong na usually binibigay mo sa kanya para makuha yung yung impormasyon na yun?
Actually, sir, yung sa teleconsult, hindi rin siya naiiba sa actual physical consultation. Kung hinihingi po namin kung gaano katagal na, kailan nagsimula, ano yung mga sintomas or nararamdaman, and then kung may naipatingin na dati or merong mga gamot na nagamit na or nainom, mostly yun po yung hinihingi naming information. And then like I said, yung picture po, at least for our specialty, before mag-start pa lang po yung consultation, hinihingi na namin yung picture kasi napaka-importante po yun para sa amin para ma-direct po namin yung pagtatanong. So alam na namin, base sa litrato pa lang kung saan kami papunta sa paghingi ng detalye mula sa pasyente.
O sige, baliktarin ko naman yung tanong. O sige, anong payo ang mabibigay nyo sa mga pasyente kung magte-telemedicine sila o magte-teleconsultation? Ano bang dapat gawin nila bilang paghahanda para maging mas mahusay at fruitful yung consultation nila sa inyo? Ano yung mga pointers na binibigay nyo sa kanila?
So, number one po, so like I said, the photos are very important. So, tinuturuan po namin sila kung paano kumuha ng litrato ng maayos. Kasi po kung malabo, hindi rin namin makikita ng mabuti. So, sinasabihan namin sila sa maliwanag na lugar, kumuha ng litrato, kung pwedeng outdoors, kung kaya. And then, lagi pong sinasabi na as much as possible, wag pong magmumultitask. So, kung nag-aabang po sila ng tawag mula sa aming mga doktor, sana full attention po sana. Kasi sayang naman po yung opportunity. May ibang patients po kasi na may tendency na mag-multitask, nagluluto, kaya naglalaba. So, hindi po nila nakakausap. Hindi, kasi phone call po, sir. So, parang kayang-kaya mag-multitask. So, hindi nila na...
Sorry medyo nagugulat lang ako Dahil habang kausap kayo, nagluluto sila, ganun ba?
Or minsan po namamalengke, ganun. Nangyayari po talaga yun. So, kasi po parang may kausap lang sila sa cellphone may kausap lang sa telepono. So, di ba tayo naman po, minsan nagmo-multitask tayo pag may kausap tayo sa cellphone. So, pero sayang po yung... parang nagkukwentuhan lang. So, sayang po yung opportunity. Kasi, mas maganda po kung full attention para talaga pong yung history, yung nangyari dun sa pasyente, malalaman namin ng detalyado at saka tama, at saka kumpleto. Kasi syempre kung distracted yung kausap mo, maaaring may mga nakakalimutan siyang sabihin sa'yo. And then,
so maghahanda, konsentrasyon pag nag-uusap kayo, ano pa?
Kung may internet connection, sana mas maganda para ma-send po nila agad yung litrato. Kasi minsan yun po yung nagiging problema namin. Magte-text na sila dun sa hotline number namin and then hihingi na po yung litrato. Hindi rin nila nasisend agad. And then, tapos yung schedule. So, kung kunyari, like lalo na po sa mga private clinics, kung magko-consult sila, pag binigyan po ng schedule na gantong oras kayo tatawagan ng doktor, sana po inaabangan nila talaga. Kasi yun po yung pinaka-concern talaga namin. Sayang kasi yung
sayang yung
tawag.
oras. Oo,
Sayang po yung oras
sayang.
kasi marami rin pong pasyenteng nag-iintay pa.
O sige. I think malapit tayo magbe-break ng konti. Pero bago tayo huminto, Doc, no? Ito tanong ko naman sa mga doktor. Kasi bagong paraan ito, hindi ba? Ng pag-handle o pag-treat ng mga pasyente. Mga doktor ba nakaka-adjust na? Kasi sabi ng iba, yung mga matatandang doktor, ayaw na nila ng telemedicine. Yung mga bata daw, ang katulad nyo, Doc, na mukhang mas... kayo daw ang nagdadala nitong telemedicine na ito. Tama ba yun?
Sa ngayon po, sa napansin ko, nung nag-start po yung pandemic, mas marami pong mas batang doktor yung talagang mabilis na naka-adjust. Lalo na po kung ang gamit is online na mga software or platforms para po sa telemedicine. Kasi may learning curve po siya So, kailangang aralin mo yung software, kung paano gagamitin. Pero sa tingin ko naman po ngayon, kasi medyo matagal na po, simula nung start yung pandemic, I think mas marami na pong doktor ang mas nag-o-offer ng telemedicine. Kasi ang tagal na rin pong absent from practice So I'm sure some of them have already found ways to come back and serve their patients.
Okay, Doc, no? We're gonna take a break muna, no? Tapos, pero standby ka muna kasi mamaya meron naman tayong mga tanong that we'll be getting from our viewers, no? Sa aming pagbabalik, makakasama naman natin kasi si Doc Melendez dito sa Rizal, dito sa Metro Manila. Mamaya, makakasama natin ang Pangulo ng Philippine Red Cross Cebu Chapter upang ikwento naman ang kanyang karanasan sa paggamit ng telehealth para mag-serve naman ng rural patients. Teka muna. Huwag kayong maglipat ng channel. Dito lang po tayo sa One Ph CignalTV Channel 1. Okay, we're back dito po sa Teka Muna. At mga kaibigan, kung meron po kayong mga tanong tungkol sa paksang ito, please, dumiretso lang po kayo dun sa aming live stream sa Facebook page ng One Ph dito po sa Teka Muna. At sasagutin natin mamaya in the latter portion of the program. Punta naman tayo sa ibang setting. Ang ating susunod na guest ay walang iba kundi si Dr. Stanley Caminero. Siya po ay presidente ng Philippine Red Cross in the Cebu Chapter. Dati din po siyang mayor ng at saka vice mayor ng Argao sa Cebu. Good evening, Doctor. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, Sir Bon. Thank you so much for the invitation at magandang gabi po sa lahat na nakasubaybay sa magandang programa po ninyo sa One Ph CignalTV po.
At mayong gabi sa inyong tanan dyan sa Cebu. Okay? Okay.
Mayong gabi, mayong gabi.
Doc, ang pagkakaalam ko, matagal na kayong gumagamit ng teleconsulting. no? Pero
Yes
ang
po.
isang kakaiba sa practice mo ay marami sa mga pasyente mo na nagte-teleconsulting ay hindi po sa siyudad, kundi
Opo,
sa
totoo po
mga
yun.
sa kanayunan, particularly doon sa may medyo bulubunduking lugar ng Argao. Paano niyo ho nagagawa 'yon? How do you do that, no?
Well, noon po, ang convenience po ng trabaho ko ay uh, brought about by the evolution of telecommunications din po. Halimbawa noon, more than a decade ago, talagang two-way radio lang po talaga ang ginagamit para ma-follow up mo yung pasyente doon, matanong mo, so wala ka talagang makita. And then, here comes telephone, the cell phone, at kasi sobrang very few areas doon ang may signal, so kailangan mag-lamp sila doon sa area. But over time, especially nung very lately, nung maka-set up yung smart communications ng tower doon, malaking tulong po talaga kasi with Wi-Fi at LTE, so talagang we can extract as much of our histories, kahit physical exam on inspection, makita mo yung mga resulta nila if they already have one, at mas masinsina na po yung communication po doon sa evaluation. Yung scope po kasi ng pasyente ko po, Sir Mon, is hindi lang po kasi surgery. Kasi sa bundok, pag doktor ka, lahat talaga sa iyo na yan. Lahat, pedya, derma, lahat-lahat na yan. So,
lahat na, sagol-sagol na. O sige.
So, package deal na yan. So, it would really range from those that can be completely managed kung halimbawa kung pag superficial yon, mga skin related na problems, or even surgical cases but superficial like mga ordinary tumors, the telecommunication would really suffice. But there are some cases na kailangan mo talagang examine, no? Yung tinatawag na ipapalpate or i-auscultate mo, no? Gamitan mo ng stethoscope, instruments. Kailangan mo talaga sila i-schedule at puntahan mo talaga. So ito parang medyo mistiso po ito. Itong kaibahan sa kay Doktora kanina na hindi po hanggang doon lang talaga sa screen. May mga portion po talaga doon na i-categorize mo na needs actual examination at puntahan mo talaga. Ganun po.
Pero just to clarify, Doc, kasi baka hindi alam ng mga tao, surgeon ka, hindi ba?
Opo.
Okay. So, to pursue that point na kakasabi mo lang, Doc, so, in practice, lalo na dyan sa kanayunan na tinutukoy natin, what conditions do you normally handle? Anong mga sakit o kondisyon ang hinahandle nyo sa pamamagitan ng teleconsulting?
Actually, very broad range po yung cases na ina-address po natin, Sir Mon, no? For instance, yung sinasabi ko na nga, pag nasa bundok yun, pag mayroon silang mga medical illnesses, kasama na po yun. Kasi pag hindi sila, halimbawa recently with the COVID pandemic, no? Hindi talaga sila pupunta sa ospital. Hindi sila pupunta sa institutions or sa doktor nila na private dito ba sa city or kahit doon sa town proper man lang. So kasama na 'yun sa ini-entertain natin. Of course, yung extreme end of the spectrum ay yung talaga mga surgical cases po. Ang mga surgical cases naman po, meron kasi yung mga elective. Pwedeng i-elective, pwede mong you can buy time to see them or to advise them for a laboratory workup na pupunta sila doon sa baba. Sa town proper kasi may mga laboratories na para alam na nila kung ano yung kailangan nilang laboratorio, kung kailangan nila mag-fasting, ganyan. So, ma-instruct mo na. So, it really saves time. So, ganun po yun for the pre-op, no? Yung mga for surgery, tapos makaya naman for ambulatory surgery po, igugrupo ko lang po yon kasi may satellite charity clinic po kasi ako doon sa pinakabundok at may nurse po kasi ako doon. Every week, puntahan ko po sila yon. Let's say mga 5 or 5 to 10 patients na opera. So magantay sila doon. Yung iba na kailangan i-admit talaga, i-prime talaga sila na kung a-admit sila, at least kung pwede na ma-work up sila ahead of time. So, halimbawa, kailangan muna nila nang magpa-swab before sila ma-admit. Otherwise, pabalik-balik po sila. Oo, so, medyo complex po siya, sermon, no? Kasi nasabi ko na nga po, hindi mo talaga po yung tanggihan yung case ito, hypertension ito. Doon, hindi talaga specialty based yung sa bundok. Talagang come one, come all talaga po yung cases doon. But, buti na rin po at natuto na rin sila na mag-utilize ng cellphone kasi marami pong aspeto ng kondisyon nila na the doctor can learn ahead of time. Tapos, if you need to get to see them, it will not take long. Or if pwede silang may gagawin bago sila haharap sa doktor, nagawa na nila yon. So it really shortens the time na makaharap nila ng doktor at in a way, it shortens the time for them to get the necessary treatment that they will need.
Curious lang ako, Doc, no? Kasi halimbawa, yung pasyente mo medyo matanda na. Sino ang kinakausap mo? Yung pasyente mismo o kinakausap mo yung kanyang anak o yung apo niya? Kumbaga ako, nag-recruit ka ba ng assistant para makatulong sa'yo?
You'll be surprised po, Sir Mon, no? Akala natin yung mga, may mga, huwag naman yung matanda kasi magalit yung iba. Yung medyo may edad-edad na, you'll be surprised na natuto na rin silang mag-manipulate ng cellphone. So, yung mga may edad po, yung mga may edad po, gustong-gusto talaga nila sila mismo kakausap sa doktor. Okay. Minsan nga, pagalitan pa nga nila yung anak nila pag mag-i-interrupt. So, it's also a spectrum po. May iba naman po na preferred nila na yung anak yung mag-relay, lalo na pag may laboratories na. So, gusto nila anak na yung magdi-discuss. But I made it a point also, Sir Mon, na kung makausap ko talaga yung patient, iba talaga pag patient ang kakausapin. Much closer to reality kasi yung at accurate yung mga yung na-feel niya, yung mga findings niya. So, hanggat sa maaari, pasyente talaga yung kausapin po. But of course, minsan pag kailangan ng additional na assistance, meron po ako doong assistant na nurse sa bundok na siya po yung puntahan na po nila yung satellite clinic doon at hindi na po sila hindi po sila gagastos ng load kasi may phone po ako doon. So, meron po silang refuge.
So doon kumbaga may halfway point na pwede silang puntahan at doon kayo magko-consult na matagal, kumbaga.
Yes po, if ever needed. Opo.
So, okay. Ikaw lang bang gumagawa nito, Doc Caminer, or what about, is this something that's already being embraced by the Red Cross chapter in Cebu? Are more doctors doing this kind of thing ngayon?
Ang alam ko po, yung ibang doctors, they have this, but hindi ko lang po alam kung they go beyond the screen communication, no? Kung baga, telecommunications. Kasi yung sa akin po talaga, I have to go there. So, naging routine kasi yun. So, they would really prefer it this way. Kasi they know na if ever something is not enough, it can be verified. Sa mga, alam ko, mga kasama ko, yung mga internists, yung mga ibang specialties, they also have their platform on telemedicine, but these are mainly city-based po, sa alam ko.
Okay. Pero alam mo, yung sa kwento mo, Doc, hindi lang pang-COVID itong ginagawa mo ngayon, hindi ba? Yung yung pag-teleconsulting mo is a way na parang ini-screen mo, kumbaga nagtatriage ka, nakukuha mo yung impormasyon, nagiging mas mabilis yung pag-treatment dun sa ano. So this is something that will, di ba, it will survive COVID. Kahit wala ng COVID, gagamitin mo pa rin ito?
Yes po, tama ka po doon, Sir Mon, kasi sa totoo, long before COVID, existing na po ito. Ano lang po siya, napa-facilitated nung higher fidelity of the network, telecommunication networks, kasi malaking tulong talaga yon. Oo, but with or without COVID, this is really my routine. It's just a way of, paying it forward kasi taga-bundok po kasi ako, Sir Mon. Doon ako lumaki. So, parang alam ko talaga yung plight nila doon na pag wala talagang doktor na makita o pag makikita ka ng midwife, para ka na nakakita ng anghel. So, ngayon, at least pag makita sila ng doktor, malaking bagay na po sa kanila yon. At of course, parang gratitude na po ito kay Lord na kahit pa paano maibalik natin doon sa nangangailangan talaga.
So, kung hindi kayo makikita, kahit marinig man lang yung boses ninyo, ganun ba?
Parang gano'n na po kasi, opo.
Dok, ano may papayo nyo sa mga doktor? No? Kasi parang nagkakaroon ng bagong, nagbubukas ng pinto para sa bagong age ng pag-treat ng mga pasyente, no? Kahit hindi lang sa bundok, kahit sa siyudad, yung teleconsulting can also make treatment much more efficient. Kaya lang, di ba mas malaking trabaho sa mga doktor ito?
Talagang tulad na sinabi ni Doktora Melendez po, Sir Mon, may learning curve po talaga itong telemedicine po, Pero complementary po talaga ito, at a doctor will never learn unless he or she starts engaging in telemedicine. Siguro ang isang dito, nag-alinlangan siguro ang iba dahil yung compensation po kasi sa consultation, parang medyo alanganin po kasi yon, Sir Mon. Unlike sa akin, kasi ito sa akin purely charity kasi yon pag sa bundok. Pag city kasi, I think many doctors are used to the patients going to the clinic and paying for the consultation fee. There are possibilities kasi na hindi ganyan exactly ang compensation manner po. So, narinig ko kanina kay Dr. Melendez na they have to go to payment outlets like Paymaya or other modes. I think that's the area siguro na medyo alinlangan yung iba, those who are particular with the PF or the consultation fee, but most doctors naman po talaga are may charity talaga po yon mainly. So, ang mapayo ko siguro sa kanila is kahit may edad na doktor, sinabi mo kanina na minsan yung mga elderly doctors would tend to shy away from this, but I think wala pong age age prescription yung telemedicine. In fact, it would work well with elderly doctors kasi it will save you time to travel, di ba, to the clinic, ganyan, and of course the strain. Yes po. So I think this is something that will be part of the new normal in the practice of medicine po in today and in the future. So we better accept it and we better start learning this. And it's always a trial and error, and hopefully more of the useful ones. We need to learn this and see how it works to our different and respective specialties po. Ganon.
Okay. Well, Doc, thank you very much for your very very incisive tsaka insightful one. Pero Doc, we'll take a break again, pero don't go away kasi meron tayong question and answer session later on the program. Kasama kayo ni Dr. Melendez at ang ating pangatlong guest, no? So in the meantime, Mga kaibigan, huwag po kayong malas. We will be right back. We're back here at Tech Muna at saka mga kaibigan, mga kapatid, kung meron po kayong mga tanong, please do go to our Facebook live stream. Doon po kayo mag-comment o magtanong, no, para mamaya sasagutin po natin. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Our next guest, ito naman, siya po ay Director ng University of the Philippines, Manila, National Telehealth Center, which since 1998 po, matagal na, ay nagpo-promote ng practice ng telemedicine. Ang ating guest po ay si Dr. Raymond Francis Sarmiento. Good evening, Doc.
Good evening po, Sir Mon, at magandang gabi rin po sa lahat ng ating tagapakinig at tagapanood at tagapagsubaybay.
Oh, sige, Doc, thank you very much for joining us tonight. No? Narinig na niyo yung kinuwento kanina ni Dr. Melendez at saka ni Dr. Caminero. You represent an institution na matagal nang nagtatrabaho dito sa area na ito eh. So
Yes, that is correct.
Sa perspective nyo, kumbaga, ano yung nakikita nyong aral dun sa karanasan nitong mga doktor na ito? Isa sa urban setting, isa naman sa kadayunan. No, what's the future of telemedicine now dito sa Pilipinas? Lalo na ngayon na parang mas marami na talagang gumagamit.
Opo. Just to give a historical context lang po, no, Sir Mon, telemedicine here in the Philippines has been around for a decade and a half already. It started around 2007 or 2008 through very, very simple means lang po. It started with SMS telemedicine and MMS telemedicine. At that time, we were engaging with the municipal health officers, with members of the doctors to the various batches to be able to understand how all of these things work and try to see how we could bring the practice of telemedicine as part of our mainstream. So sa ngayon po, no, the pandemic has provided an opportunity to fast forward our telemedicine practices and our policies and all of the technologies that enable it. And really, the thing that we are excited here at the National Telehealth Center is that finally, we see telemedicine becoming really mainstream and how it would play a critical role in terms of the successful implementation of universal healthcare po, lalo na po sa role po nito sa pag-enable ng successful referral system na created po as part of the service delivery networks na makikreate po as part of the law.
Pero Doc, in the past, acceptance was an issue of both the patients at saka mga doktor, no? Di ba? Naaalangan pa yung mga doktor at saka mga pasyente. Pero ngayon, nagkaroon ba ng pagbabago?
The economic losses and then vis-a-vis potential economic gains, those were really we believe the primary drivers as to how telemedicine during this pandemic has been put into the forefront po. So the challenges that we have, particularly in the Philippines, remain. The three main challenges that we have for telemedicine practice are, number one, there is no encompassing or very, very specific law on the practice of telemedicine in the country. And that is why the National Telehealth Center has been working with all of the other e-health stakeholders that we have to be able to push forward what we have, yung pong pinaka-closest bill that we have to becoming a law, which is the Philippine National E-Health System and Services Act. In it, it has a section on telemedicine, an organizational, let's say, prospects po in terms of how implementation of telemedicine practice, the need for certification of telemedicine providers, all of those things are incorporated in the law. I think that's the closest that we have been to having a bill become a law, because that Philippine National E-Health System and Services Act was, I think, approved po sa Congress, and it's being reviewed and being really pushed forward at the Senate level na po sa ngayon. Number two would be the lack of reimbursement. So as Dr. Caminero mentioned, a lot of
issue yun, di ba?
Yes po, Sir Mon. A lot of it has to do with the fact that people really do not, parang there's still a level of parang nangangapa in terms of how they will be charging, what is ethically, and perhaps their comfort level in terms of charging how much. Should their charge in telemedicine consultation be equal to how they do it in face-to-face, or kung mas mababa ba siya, how much na mas mababa, yung mga ganun po. And then finally, there are those naman po who are really struggling in terms of I've been doing this pro bono for many years, and just because of the pandemic, magcha-charge na ba ako? Yung mga ganun pong elemento come into play. And then, sir, third and final of the top three reasons in terms of the challenges in telemedicine practice in the Philippines is the liability, the prospect of liability, and that goes hand in hand po with the fact that there is really no specific telemedicine law. So there are multiple players in the market, both foreign and local, and because no law, parang it's really parang a playground in and of itself, but all of the relevant stakeholders, the Department of Health, the Department of ICT, Department of Science and Technology, PhilHealth, all of these relevant stakeholders, part of the Philippine National E-Health Program, and also members po of the National E-Health Steering Committee, which provides essentially the general directions for e-health in the country. Sila po yung talagang nag-aaral. Paano po ba natin talaga magkakaroon po ng mas structured approach in terms of implementation of telemedicine in the country, the guidelines for telemedicine providers, and what are the expectations dapat ng mga pasyente po. So in June, I think in the first week of June po, June 8th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken po, 2020, the Department of Health and the University of the Philippines through the National Telehealth Center po, we worked on issuing a joint memorandum circular showing po and indicating guidelines for telemedicine providers, very mga specific guidelines po that would essentially help po ba ang pag-conduct ng telemedicine consultation sa Pilipinas po.
Yun kasi mas maganda na talaga na pag may standardization no? Para meron kang masusunod na kumbaga parang alitong tunin at maliwanag sa lahat, di ba? Pero kasi,
tama po.
Kasi Doc, parang sayang naman no kung di natin ayusin ito dahil sa kabila ng lahat ng napakaraming problema na gawin ito, no? Mukhang malaking tulong talaga sa mga kababayan natin itong ganitong klaseng consultation, hindi ba?
Yes, tama po yun, Sir Mon. As we often like to say at the National Telehealth Center, telemedicine is here to stay. Lalo na po, kasi ngayon po sa panahon ng pandemic, it's not just parang a passing fad. We expect po that telemedicine will actually be embedded as part of the let's say the mainstream practice of medicine of our let's say practitioners all across the country po. What that means is that assuming po, let's say we are now past the COVID-19 pandemic and we are now going back to our pre-COVID circumstances and situations po, we expect that the doctors and also the patients po will also probably most likely expect this po na magkakaroon po ng both face-to-face and also a scheduling for telemedicine consultation. So let's say across all across the week po may mga araw po na ang doctor will dedicate po a time set aside to just do telemedicine consultations, and then those that will fall under the face-to-face consultation. Ang lagi po tatandaan is that hindi po lahat ng mga kaso ay pwede po ng telemedicine. Meron po kasing ganoong misconception ang karamihan na porket nagkakaroon po sila ng pagkakataon na makita po ang kanilang doktor in this setup, baka pwede niyang makita niya ang aking let's say, if I wanted to show something that's in a very sensitive part of my body, or something that normally would require like the physical, let's say, examination, yung talagang hahawakan po ng doktor ang pasyente na mangangailangan po ng gano'n. So,
kasi Doc, I was thinking of myself as an individual, no? Sarili ko, halimbawa, nakita ko na mas magiging mabilis ang treatment sa akin. Halimbawa, kung bago ako pumunta sa doktor, sabihin natin, na-schedule ako ng appointment sa kanya, magpapadala na ako ng, ito yung sintomas ko. Kung kailangan kumuha halimbawa ng retrato, may rash ako sa aking skin, kukuha ko ng retrato, i-email ko sa doktor. Bago pa ako dumating sa doktor, meron ng idea yung doktor na kung anong problema, at saka mas mabilis yung examination kung magkakaroon pa ng examination. Di ba ganun ang pwede mangyari?
Tama po, may ganun din po. There are, but not all patients, Sir Mon, we try to remember po that not all patients are as tech savvy. Yun po, ni Tech Lolo Mon Isberto. So, there are those that we need to, let's say, have more, shall we say, hand-holding po na pagka-iintindihan kung paano po ba. And for most people, telemedicine really is parang bago pa po sa kanila ito. So, kailangan po nilang alamin no, parang kung it's something that's a very very visual condition that I have, snapping a picture, let's say for dermatologic condition, or maybe my doctor is a rehab medicine specialist and he or she wanted to see, let's say, the range of motion in my limb or in my joint, so those kinds of things. Pwede po makita po yun. Pero there are certain, let's say, gaya nga po sabi ko, may mga certain conditions that will be best if it's a face-to-face consultation.
Sige, Doc, sandali. Now let's bring in our two other guests, para sabay-sabay tayo sumagot dun sa mga tanong that we are getting from our televiewers. So, Dr. Sarmiento, stand by ka dyan. Can we get back si Dr. Melendres at saka si Dr. Caminero? Doc Melendres, Doc Caminero, good evening. Magkakasama na tayo. Ako na lang, hindi doktor, kahit itsurang doktor ako.
Para kang Monsignor Sermon.
Monsignor pala, maling profesyon. Okay. Ito isang general question from Mr. Emmanuel Arce, pero nasagot na natin ito in some ways, but you may want to add pa, the three doctors, paano po magiging effective ang assessment sa telemedicine kung virtual lang po ang consultation? Okay? That's a broad question, pero I think that's in many people's minds. Do you want to tackle that, Doc? Which one? Sinong gusto mag-raise ng hand dyan? Ikaw, Dr. Melendez, so we can hear your voice again.
Okay, sir. So usually naman for us doctors, pag nakausap namin yung pasyente, based on the history, medyo alam na namin kung saan papunta yung direksyon ng consultation namin. So it gives us an idea already about possible diagnosis na meron yung pasyente, and then based on that, ma-assess namin, like yung nasabi namin kanina, kung pwedeng teleconsult lang or kung kailangan talagang makita ng face-to-face. So for most cases na based on our judgment, can be managed through teledermatology. Sa palagay ko naman po, with a good history and then kung picture, kung kailangan, or laboratory tests, majority of the physicians would be able to give an accurate diagnosis and management of the case. So, pero kung kunyari, feeling namin kulang, talagang sasabihin namin, hindi natin kaya to ng teleconsult. Kailangan natin
So may judgment call pa rin, hindi ba?
Yes,
Na,
definitely.
pwede na, pero hindi pwede din kailangan mag-consult. Ganun ba yun? I mean, mag-physical, face-to-face.
Yes, correct, sir. So there are cases na talagang we're not gonna be able to manage through telemedicine and kailangan makita po in person.
Itong another question that was raised kanina by Dr. Camilero, no? So from Irish Charmaine Olaso. Sige, paano po yung consultation fee sa pag-telehealth, no? Magkakaiba pa ito ang rate doon sa compared to face-to-face o hindi? Is there any standard or is this still an evolving practice pa? Anybody want to take this, Dr. Sarmiento, Dr. Caminero?
Siguro ang mas makasagot po doon si Doktora Melendres kasi nakaset up po yun, institutionalized kasi sa kanila. Ang yung sa akin po, as far as I'm concerned, more on personalized kasi ito, ang baseline po kasi dito by default charity po. However, alam mo naman yung mga tao sa bundok, pagpunta mo doon, kahit tanggihan mo, nakatali na po yung kambing minsan, yung manok, din yung saging, so hindi po pwedeng tanggihan po. But I would like to go back to your first question po, Sir Mon, no? In addition to yung sinasagot ni Doktora, ang una pong gusto kong sabihin doon sa nagtanong is ito po, case to case po talaga palagi ang sakit. There are no two diseases that are the same because there are no two persons who are the same. So, kahit diabetes yan o hypertension, iba talaga in every person. So, expertise of the attending physician talaga yon magdepende kung how accurate he can get to the diagnosis. But, of course, it also means that the doctor has to know his or her limitations so that he can refer properly to the specialist na concerned doon sa specific na complaint ng pasyente. Parang ganoon po 'yon.
Okay. Well, I'd like to follow up that comment with another question from Carmi Rivera. Specialist lang po ba ang mga doktor na pwedeng mag-consult sa telehealth? Maybe I can ask si Dr. Sarmiento to react to that one.
Opo. So, thank you for that question, Carmi. No? So, it's not really limited to just clinical specialists or even those with subspecialties for them to just be the ones eligible to do telehealth or teleconsultation. As a matter of fact, talagang konti lang po talaga ang mga specialista at subspecialist sa buong Pilipinas po. Marami din po sa mga doktor ang mga general practitioners at hindi nyo po natatanong in terms of our human resources for health, talagang kulang po tayo if we are trying to look in terms of the equitable distribution of doctors, of a doctor and then a particular patient population all across the country because we are, I believe, 110, 112 billion Filipinos po, no? It's something that I think kailangan pa po talagang paigtingin na strengthen our human resources for health. To the earlier question po with regards to let's say yung charging and how expenses are related or costs are related po to telemedicine consultations. Like I mentioned po, a lot of the practitioners either charge it equally, kapareho po ng face-to-face consultation, or there are, for the most part, they try to put in like a lesser amount compared to how when they do it to face-to-face consultation. Ang kailangan lang pong tandaan, like in previous talks that I have given po, our recommendation at the National Telehealth Center is that practitioners should also be cognizant of, let's say, how much time the provider will be able to allot for that particular telemedicine consultation. That's one. And number two, if there is like a pre-consultation work that's happening, maybe trying to see what the patient is likely to consult on, and then trying to see how complex or difficult that case will be. That lends itself into trying to understand paano po ba ang management for this patient, and if it's very, very complex, is it something that I can do by telemedicine? How do I charge for it? So it's really a whole spectrum po of various different factors coming into play.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sarmiento. Ito, may magandang tanong ito. Parang galing sa dyaryo ito yung tanong na ito. This is from Rona Santos. Ang tanong niya po ay, paano ba maiiwasan yung mga peking doktor online? Kasi daw, meron pong isang sumikat daw na doktor recently na nabuking na peke pala. So, how do we deal with that kind of issue or problem? Dr. Melendez, ano bang masasabi mo dyan?
Usually po, yung mga ways to contact your doctor are on their website ng ospital o kaya sa Facebook page ng ospital. So yun po yung isang paraan para malaman nyo na legitimate sila na doktor. So yung number or their cellphone number or yung website or yung platform, doon nyo po kukunin sa page ng ospital nila. Also, maganda kung you can do a little bit of background search. So usually kami namang mga doktor, makikita nyo naman kung doktor talaga siya based yung sa pangalan. Kung itry nyo i-search sa Google, yung iba lumalabas po yung pangalan nila kung tunay na doktor talaga sila. And then, mag-ingat na lang po kasi pagkausap nyo, tapos medyo mukhang nagdududa na kayo na baka hindi talaga siya tunay na doktor, mas maganda po siguro na wag na lang ituloy yung pagkonsulta sa kanya. Kasi po, usually kung tamang tao naman yung kinukonsulta nyo, yung mga paraan ng pagtatanong niya are very well directed. Tapos po, very professional, usually yung manner ng pag-conduct po ng consultation.
Okay. Any other comments, Dr. Caminero, Dr. Sarmiento?
Yes, Sir Mon. That's a very, very good question, Sir Mon, no? And a very valid concern. And I believe that that should be a major area that DOH has to secure, no? Ensure. The DOH should be one of the agencies that can be called and verified. So, or dalawa yun, either the DOH, because they should be provided with a list of all the doctors at least. For a start, na-verify man lang na doktor yon sila. So, they should have a list of that. And then, number two is, yung society, yung Philippine Medical Society po, it's the umbrella organization po kasi yan sa entire Philippines of all doctors regardless of the specialties, no? So those are the two verifying agencies or organizations, and maybe this should be part of the provisions of the bill that Dr. Sarmiento talked about, no? Verification. That's a very good question, Sir Mon.
Okay. Dr. Sarmiento, you might want to add.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Caminero, for mentioning that. Actually, before the pandemic, I think around February, we had initial discussions po with the Professional Regulations Commission po on trying to digitize, having an electronic database for the Board of Medicine and helping po PRC with that, so that there is a way for some sort of authentication, verification, and validation if really this person who claims to be a doctor really has passed the requisite requirements and has a license to be able to practice medicine in the Philippines. So in the 1959 Medical Act, it clearly states po kasi kung sino po ang mga eligible to practice medicine in the country. I think the message that we just want to share with the public po, no? We understand po that when we are, as part of our health-seeking behavior, when we are trying to look at sino po ba yung magaling na doktor, sino po ba ang doktor ninyo, we ask our family members, our relatives, mga kapitbahay na kalapit po natin, to be able to see kung sila po kung sa kanino po mga doktor sila pupunta. Pero sana po it does not stop at that point. If you could also do like Dr. Jackie Belendres mentioned earlier, if you could also do your own due diligence in terms of checking if this is the right doctor for me. Yun po, you always have to ask that question po when you are trying to seek medical care from any healthcare professional we have in the country.
Okay, Dr. Sarmiento, maraming salamat. Mukhang may customer education campaign na kailangan tayong gawin din, no? Sa publiko. No?
Opo.
Kasi telehealth, bago na namang area ito. Nako, maraming salamat, Dr. Melendez, Dr. Caminero, Dr. Sarmiento. Thank you very much for your valuable time and your very useful insights. Maraming salamat po. Okay? Thank you very
so
much again.
Sir
Thank you po.
Mon. It's our pleasure po. Thank you po.
Thank you.
Anytime po,
Okay.
Sir Mon.
Thank you again, and gusto ko magpasalamat din sa inyo mga kaibigan for joining us. Laging tandaan, malaking pakinabang po ang mga gadget at technology, pero teka muna, think before you click, baka fake yung doktor na kinakausap ninyo. So, yan, kasama na ko dyan. Ako po ulit, si Mon Isberto, ang inyong tech lolo. Magandang gabi po. Wala sa amin dito sa One Ph, kami ang boses ng pinagkaisang Pilipinas.